to clean up. I've managed to clean up the recordings of the past couple of weeks. So I will be posting these in I'm creating a channel, especially for AI in education, because we've now got three videos. This will be the fourth one in this series, and I think you're seeing them all in series. That'll only last as long until I find the time to replace these 2.5 to 3 hour videos with about 20 to 30 minutes, which is what if we really focus on the core should suffice. But I want to get something out as quickly as possible. Okay. Me. So, oops. Ding. I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, and I declare this meeting on 21 September 2024 to be open. This has been an incredible week because we've been talking for the last 3 weeks about artificial intelligence, especially artificial intelligence in the field of education. And I would say the last week or week and a half has seen more advances in artificial intelligence probably than any 10-day period well, probably ever, as far as artificial intelligence goes. It's just mind-boggling. But before I talk about what's going on with artificial intelligence, let's just discuss what it is that we are looking to talk about today. There are three things. The last two meetings ago, we talked about how artificial intelligence can help at the education level for older students, secondary school students and university students primarily. And because a lot of educators are afraid that artificial intelligence is only used to avoid learning, to do the work, write the essays, come up with the ideas, whatever for the students, so that the students don't have to do anything. They just hand it over to AI and they go out and play and don't worry about anything. But we discussed how AI in education can actually be used to promote critical thinking, to help with critical thinking, to help with creative thinking, to help with reasoning and how one even thinks, and communication skills, which are probably the most important things for anybody to learn in preparing for life. So that was what we focused on the week before last. And today we're going to look at a concrete example. I've had time to actually be able to um, create a tool that will lead older students through the process of developing those skills like critical thinking and uh, better paths of reasoning, if you would, in problem solving. So we're gonna look into how does that work, and how was I able to get AI to do that, and we'll look at a concrete example. And it's not just for older students; it's for anybody at any point in their lives. It's about how anybody thinks about anything, and how everybody needs to be a critical thinker. Everybody needs to be creative, and so we'll talk about how the tool that is being developed, how that accomplishes that. Last week, we then turned around and focused on the problem of young children, because the number one cause of failure in schools, I have to differentiate, and there's two categories of problems with education. The first problem is places that just don't have it. There's no schools there, or people can't afford to go to school. And so, or the school is there, but they don't have any qualified educators. So the lack of availability or access to education is one problem. But there's another problem that we see, regardless of where we look in developed countries, whether it's the United States or Europe or wherever, where everybody goes to school, and the schools, by and large, are all of a relatively good quality. Yet we have huge, huge disparities. And I gave the example where I'm located in New Jersey in the United States. We have about 100 and no 1,300 primary schools in New Jersey. If we look at the top 10% of those schools, they average about 92% of students being at grade level in those schools. If we look at the bottom 10%, the average of children at grade level is less than 7%. Basically, those children, by and large, will leave school unable to read. We have, according to the national tests in the United States earlier this year, 40% of fourth graders, 10-year-olds in this country cannot read effectively. And in fact, one of the things that's very interesting, if we take the United States across the board, the average level of skill attained by all Americans, adults, is only fifth grade. Fifth grade is the median level of education attainment in the United States. And when I was doing my studies into the state of education in the United States and traveling around the country, I was in a city, a fairly good-sized city in the United States, where they had an adult literacy program, helping adults learn to read. The interesting thing I found out that almost every student in that program had a high school diploma. That means the school system said, hey, you've achieved all the education you really need for life, but they couldn't read. When I was teaching at Purdue University, I had juniors and seniors. I had a junior come into my class and he couldn't read. I said, how can this be possible? Well, turns out he was a star athlete. He was a backup athlete for the U.S. Olympic team. And he was one of the star football players in the university that had gone and recruited him. And he was golden. You couldn't touch him. Well, I gave him a grade that was not adequate for him to be allowed to play sports. Of course, they if they could have, they would have fired me, I'm sure, because that football is so important. In fact, in New Jersey, the highest level, the highest paid government employee in the state of New Jersey is not the governor. It's the coach of the state football team for the state university. He makes more than the governor of the state does. Anyway, that's off to the side. The bottom line is we have in developed countries a huge gap in education outcomes between those at the top and those at the bottom. And we know that there's a huge correlation between poverty and achievement. Studies by Bloomberg, the Bloomberg Foundation did a very major study some years back in the city of Providence, Rhode Island, where they literally put microphones on all the babies, and then they tracked them over years, how many words they were hearing. And by the end of age 3, the difference between upper and middle class children and working and welfare class children was about 30 million. Well, the went as much as 30 million words difference. This translates into a gap that children from working and welfare class families, they start school up to 2 years behind in verbal vocabulary and mental maturity. And of course, if you don't have any verbal vocabulary, how do we expect to teach you to read? Because we teach people phonetically. Okay, here's how you pronounce this word where you see a bunch of letters, on the assumption that when you pronounce it and you hear it, you know what it means. These children don't know what it means. So we explored what can AI help us to close that preparation gap so that all students, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of whether your parents are working 2 to 3 jobs a day and have no time, regardless of whether you come from a migrant family where the mother tongue in the family is not the school language. And this can apply whether we're looking at some of the countries in Africa, for example, where there are many languages spoken in the home, and then they come into the education system, and the education system is trying to go forward on a language that those children have had very little exposure to, if any. So how can we overcome that problem? So that's what we talked about last week, and we gave some very, very concrete examples of things that are coming very soon, and maybe to a certain degree they're already here. We can already do a lot, but probably by the end of this year, we're only talking 3.5 months, or early next year, the what we talked about here is going to be really there. In fact, in October, Amazon is supposedly coming out with a new version of Alexa. That's the smart speakers, where basically it's your AI assistant that will have Claude built in. So you literally will be able to converse with an artificial intelligence assistant. And we talked about how those tools can make up for the fact that perhaps in the family the education level's missing, or the language has changed, or they don't have the time to spend with their children because of other demands on the family, if it's a single parent household, for example, and you have to work. Okay, so we talked about that. Now we're gonna and then the final thing is I teased, okay, is it possible that we could have an education system where every student achieves at least 95% mastery in every subject? Is that possible? Or are all the mandatory school subjects, the foundation subjects? Is that possible? Well, we're going to talk about how that can be achieved, and why it should be achieved. The fact that we're not achieving that today is just crazy. There's really no excuse for it other than the human uh, desire for no change. So we have in the United States, there's stories about this gentleman from hundreds of years ago, when New York City was still New Amsterdam, a Dutch colony, that he fell asleep in the Hudson River Valley, someplace he was taking a walk or whatever, and he fell asleep, and he woke up, and it was like 300 years later, or 400 years now, I guess, later. And he was just, if that were to happen today, people say, "Oh my God," he would be shocked. He would be seeing smartphones. He would be seeing airplanes. He would be seeing cars. He would be seeing everything. He'd be going crazy. He'd say every single thing is all changed. And then he would come by a school and he would say, here's something that nothing's changed. So in 400 years, we're still teaching exactly the same way we taught 400 years ago. And the problem is the demands for education, the expectations of what somebody needs to be properly prepared for life has changed. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I just want to. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Whoops, I just realized something. Okay. So the recording is going here. Okay. Again, can everybody see my screen? Can everybody hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, before we go into this in depth, I'd like to hear your comments, your thoughts, those of you who are with us in the last couple of weeks, comments about anything we discussed there. But also anybody who has any thoughts, any expectations, what particularly you're looking for relative to any of the topics for today. Please.
Bill, I just
Yes.
wanted to make a comment. I've made it in the chat as well, just based on what you were saying. If we could get kids to get like 95%. And the reason why I've said no is based on retention, because unless we apply what we learn within sort of like a couple of hours at least, we only retain about 20% of it. So environmental conditions will impact the ability of the learners of being able to retain that information, because some of them might still have other duties. So even if time is allocated for learning, will time be allocated for the other side of learning, which is the implementing and doing practicals and applying that knowledge? I don't know. I don't think that it's feasible as an expectation, and that's the only reason why I said no, and that it might be idealistic.
Okay. As I mentioned here a little while ago, here in New Jersey, the top 10% of primary schools, that's about 73,000 students. They currently average 92%. Apparently here, for a certain class of students, because we're talking not just individual students within the school. We're talking about the school attaining a certain level. That's 136 primary schools in New Jersey that are attaining at that level. And the thing about it is, though, your skepticism is very good, because what that says is it's up to us to demonstrate how we could do it, and then we can reevaluate whether you believe with how we're describing how that could be achieved, whether you believe that is feasible then or not. Other comments, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. In Kenya, since the time of memorial, we have been relying on exam-based curriculum. It's only the last year, now this year, we have started implementing a competent-based curriculum, whereby we do a lot of practicals are being done, but you find we lack the tools. Like if you want to demonstrate to students how to swim, you just put a curtain down or a bed sheet down, they swim on the ground, which is not practical. So you find we lack the tools to do the real practical on the ground. Like now our organization, Kind Heart, we are in the 4 informal settlements in Kisumu, Kenya, and we find there's a pilot run of the project we are doing in the 5 chosen schools in the 4 informal settlements about education for quality destiny, whereby we want to see the problems children are facing at home and in school. And you find a lot of problems are being brought to, whereby you find, as you are saying, retaining of what you have been taught in school depends on the environment itself. Like when you live next to the pub where music is being played loudly. So you find when you go back to at home, the level of retaining what you have learned in school is very minimal. So also in our pilot run, we wanted to to know the student to have the informed decision, whereby if a child wants to be a doctor, it comes from his heart that truly I want to be a doctor or I want to be an engineer, instead of being like you see in our setups, most of the parents would like their children to be like them. When you find that in this competent-based curriculum, it's called CBC, you will find that a child will be dull when mathematics is being taught. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to music, this child dance well. So you find these kind of things have really made our children to be what they are. And we in our project, we were doing life skills, whereby children, the life skills and career pathways, whereby the children, they in some sessions, you find children have a very, very stormy session, but they were very short, whereby a child will tell you, me, my mother got married to the second father with me, but the mother loves my stepfather than me. Sometimes when I make a mistake, I'm not allowed, or when my my stepfather makes a mistake, I'm not allowed to air it out. So you'll find a child will ask you, how do I go about it? Or you always tells us that we should be visiting or we should be going to the teachers. But sometimes you find these teachers are the ones who are having a lot of challenges than us. You'll find a teacher was molested in the house by the husband, and when she comes to school, how do you go to her? So sometimes what you are bringing up, I'm currently really learning a lot, and we also have our team from the Kind Heart organization. I would like to recognize the presence of Yusuf Valentine. I'll also like to recognize the presence of Dr. Ezra Masinde. Both of them are board members of Kind Heart organization, and Yusuf is the project manager of Kind Heart organization, and we are happy to be part of it. And just to add on top of this, next month we are hosting the daughter who is coming to volunteer in our organization, the daughter of the president of the Rotary in Germany. So Dr. Rolf Voige, the daughter will be visiting us for 6 months. So, thank you. So we'll be keeping you updated. Thank you so much.
So, grüße für mich. That's I don't know if you speak German, but that's a greeting for the Rotarian that's going to be visiting you. Yes, no, you brought up a lot of valid points. Now, some of those points are, like you say, are related to the resource question. But I think what we're going to discuss on how we can approach those problems. It's very true. What Denise said is the same thing. If you don't practice it, how do you learn it? You know, we say, hey, you can learn something by hearing. Somebody said something. You can learn something by that. You can learn more by reading about something, and you can learn even more by observing it, but you learn the most by doing it. And I think here that that really says we've got to find ways to do things. Yes, Rachel.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And I would like to contribute that it is possible with the eye if we integrate this eye at schools, because I think it personalizes learning in students. For example, in styles, for example, I can analyze learning styles and the progress of the students. And also, if we get for example, on how to implement this project and to make it successful, it's by having the trained professionals. And also at schools, we can have infrastructures which have the technology, which we will install the eye technology. And also we integrate the curriculum integration in the schools. And also, if we collaborate with the developers of the I think it will be more successful and we can reach the 95% that we intend to have. And also, if we focus on ethics, for example, the essential ones, which are private, depending to the place people are coming from, I think it can be successful. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Rachel, where are you from?
I'm from Kenya,
Oh,
from
okay.
Yaku community. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Any other comments before we get started?
Hey everyone.
Yes, hi.
My name is Juliana. I come from the same community with Rachel, and I really agree with what she has said, and also what my brother just said from Kenya. I'm a trained teacher in CBC, and I'm a teacher volunteer helping each other with Rachel in all this, and I can really approve that the level of our people, it's really like we have the capability for the kids to score and to be able to get all this. But if we get the trained and the expertise to do this after they get trained on that, it will really be of great help for us. I cannot add so much, but I can really agree with your points, because for sure that the resources have been limiting most of the things. The knowledge from you and the skills learning also, it's really great, and I can really say that we are on the same track.
Good, great. Okay.
Bill, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Please, sorry. What are the things that really puzzle me at the moment is on sustainability. So I'm looking at.
Let me just. If I could ask Juliana, can you mute yourself?
Okay, so I had a question on sustainability and also on the interventions that we're looking to apply. And my family accuses me all the time of living in the future, not living in the present, because I'm thinking of interventions with the future in mind. And my biggest worry right now is in the interventions we are potentially looking at implementing, for example, in schools. If we already know that the disruption that's coming in a few years' time is going to mean that, like especially with the personalized learner pathways, we potentially looking at not just being able to conduct analytics and be able to help, or teachers help students, where we're moving to a learning type environment using AI with the teachers as mentors, like you've mentioned before, Bill. And the personalized learning pathways are going to be more focused on having dynamic learning. So if we are using resources right now to implement something that is only going to be sustainable for a year, maybe 2 years, is that not a waste? Like I'm hoping you could please shed some light on it. I know that you're the most knowledgeable person that I know on AI and keep up to date with what's happening. And I hope that you can give me some direction with that. Thank you.
Oh, boy, did you bring up a tough subject. Yeah, the projections are that we are heading towards a jobless society. We're heading towards a future where, especially those people who are higher skilled or have higher education, university graduates and the like, we could be seeing in a very short time. And when I say a very short time, imagine you're a senior in high school and you're starting to think about, okay, where do I go to university? And you say, okay, I'm going to be at the university for 4 to 6 years. So you're looking at a horizon of 5 to 6 years. Well, guess what? 6 years from now is 2030. And the projection is that we will lose up to 1 billion jobs by 2030. And it's not like, oh, you can go over and do another job. because basically we're looking at a future where there is literally nothing a human being can do that AI or robots can't do better. And that's a subject for a whole nother meeting, but believe me, I've been involved in software development and AI since the 1960s. So you can sort of guess how old I am, but I've gone through a lot of waves, and I've been involved not at the level, let's say, of a programmer who's just translating things. I've been involved in the architecture of IT, of software solutions, all the way up to automating the entire enterprise, from accounting to inventory to shipping to manufacturing, to HR and administration, the whole thing. And also going back as far as the 1970s, I was already involved in uh, looking at how to automate the production of software. In other words, how to get software to create software, which is a lot of the basis of where the current AI is coming from. So I've seen a lot of this coming, but I've seen nothing like what's going on. My wife is afraid I need to be put into a padded room here when I just look at the speed at which things are happening. Just in this past week alone, I'll probably, one of the next meetings, I'll probably just have another session just to bring everybody up to date. What is the latest state of the art? What is now, right now, possible? Because most people have no clue. And when we look at that 3-4 months out into the future, which is nothing when you think about it, 3-4 months, that goes by like that. But what has already been announced that it will be being released next month and in the next few months is it's going to revolutionize life. Now, what does that mean? That means potentially here, anybody who is going to be starting university next year or the year after, there'll probably be no jobs by the time they get finished. And 80% of the students that go to universities in the United States are going to prepare for a career. So if there's no career, why are you doing that? And I look at it and I say, you know, if it's not like you're just going to prepare for a certain job, the number one thing you have to prepare for is to be an effective, flexible human. You've got to be prepared to be able to look at your environment, look at what's going around you, and understand what's happening all around you. Right now, we have a lot of adults that just don't understand and don't want to know. Don't tell me, I don't want to hear it, type of thing. But we know we can't solve problems unless we recognize that we've got the problems. So we need to prepare people before education, in some people's mind, becomes meaningless. People still will need to communicate. People will shift. They won't necessarily have to work in order to survive, but they'll have to work maybe, or have to learn even just to play. They'll have to learn to think just to be able to deal with their own mind. So I believe education will retain its value. It will shift in what and how. So if I recall the words of Fred Swaniker, the founder of the African Leadership University, and he was talking about that we need to shift our education system today, which is a just in case. We teach you all kinds of information just in case maybe you'll need that in the future, and so that you can understand when you're hearing the news being spoken or that people are talking about something, just so you can understand that you need a certain level of education. But a lot of it is this just in case education. And there's an awful lot that I can recall from what I learned going through school that I've never applied. I've never used the stuff. So he sees that we're coming to a world of just-in-time education, where I can learn anything at any time, very efficiently and quickly, as I need it. And that takes preparation. You have to learn how to learn. So the focus is shifting away from learning stuff to learning how to learn, so that you have the confidence. People that don't have confidence generally don't try. Oh, we have so many children who, because they started off way behind and all they heard in their early years was, that's wrong, that's wrong. You have to be better and so forth. And by the time they're in 5th grade, they just feel, hey, I guess I'm not one of those people that can learn anything. So we need to move beyond that. So Denise, I don't know if that answers your question. You get your hand back up, so maybe not.
Yes, but just based on what you've said, like we have enough intelligence to know that if it does take time to get people to have a change in mindsets and change behaviors, why have we not started it? If we're looking at this happening imminently, why are we not starting it? I don't understand, Bill. I the interventions, the conversations that are happening around AI and how it's being adopted in the different industries, how it's happening in education. I'm looking at it and thinking you are looking to apply interventions for an obsolete solution. It makes no sense to me.
I don't think it's obsolete. I really don't. I think here, for example, the fact that if you're from a lower socioeconomic background, the fact that you start school with almost no chance, you start your learning process with almost no chance because you were never exposed to language, to more sophisticated subjects and the like in your early years. That can be overcome. As I mentioned, communication skills. You're still going to need communication skills. We're not going to all turn into vegetables when this happens. But you're right about one thing, and that is that it is so hard to get people to accept and change their minds. A recent poll in the U.S. Said that 40% of Americans still believe that climate change is a hoax. It's fake news. It's not real. So this is an indication of some of the problems that we run into. Rachel, I think you were next.
Yes, please. So I was inquiring, Mr. Bill, why could we, for example, in Kenya, why could we not start these? We start in an early age. For example, our kids normally go to school at the age of 40. They go to playgroup, that's in this new curriculum. And if they start at this playgroup age, that's of 4 years, I think it will be good intervention, the early age. And also the professionals should have a continuous training for the students to achieve the 95% also. And also the involvement of the parents, also parents not to be left behind, because the parents, we are the ones who are living with these kids at home. And also if we are involved in this technology, at least it's gonna be easier for us also to deal with the kids at home, because it won't be something new whereby it will create some quarrels with us, with the kids, of which type of this technology are you creating laziness for yourself? No, but it is good if we float in the same table with our kids, Mr. Bill.
Yeah, no, you brought up a lot of points, and I'm going to jump into the meat of the topic here shortly. But you're right on one thing. The early childhood intervention is a definite path to success, and really what we're talking about with the younger children is that's what we're talking about. How do we achieve that? Now, part of the problem is here in the United States, we have a very strong movement among a lot of parents to say, government, you stay away from my family. You have nothing to say to my family. I will control how my family, how my children get educated and so forth. So the good parents are saying, government hands off. But what about the parents that are unable or unwilling to do what's needed? We have a program in some of our major cities here where there are special schools that really provide great opportunities for children. But we see here that the parents that are lining up for the extra work for their children are the parents that whose children are already successful. The children who are not successful, their parents don't even bother to get online to register their children to have a better opportunity. When I was studying the state of education in the US, and my children got their early education outside of the United States, but as I was studying education in the US, and I was looking in Washington, D.C. Now, Washington, D.C., you have a lot of politicians and lobbyists and wealthy people that very often they live on the outside or they send their kids to private school. But the public school system in Washington, D.C. is a very troubled system. And I recall at the time that the school officials were complaining that a very high percentage of the parents of the children in the public school system are victims of substance abuse, and therefore they're trying to cope with their own lives, and they really don't have time to cope effectively with their children's lives. And so we run into the problem here that the good parents are say, you don't tell parents what to do. And then we run into the problem, well, what about the parents that are not able to do that? Maybe because they didn't get an education themselves, or as I say, they have to work 2 to 3 jobs. So we know we have to do something. Now, Finland, the United States is around 30 to 35th in education outcomes in the world, which is not very good here. And Finland was in about the same situation, maybe about 30 years ago. And they implemented some changes there that made a difference. To me, the biggest change that they made was they opened preschool for children as young as 6 months of age, so that with very high quality educators, you had to have at least a master's degree. And so these children, by the time they got to first grade, all the children had a very high quality preparation for schools. As I mentioned, in the US, if you're in a lower socioeconomic class, you could be starting school up to 2 years behind. And that 2 years that you're behind, our school system says now we have to treat everybody equal. So if you're 2 years behind and you're being fed the same materials as somebody who's not 2 years behind, you have no chance. You've lost before you begin. So providing early childhood preparation is crucial. But the problem is not everybody has the resources. Within a family in the United States, preschool can cost $15,000 a year or more per child. So many parents can't send them, or they send them only to a daycare, which is minimal. Child, go sit in the corner, keep quiet, stay out of the way, don't make any trouble. And they do almost nothing here in terms of preparation of the child. Or the parent is at home, got 4 or 5 children, and has maybe a job where they're working from home. And so the child, hey, sit them in front of the TV set. Maybe you show them Sesame Street, and maybe they pick up a little bit. But we know getting a one-way stream of material like that is not really that effective in helping children learn. So, but the fact that we have to come up with an early childhood solution that enables those children to have been exposed to the same broader vocabulary, the same broader general information, so that they can begin school at the same level of mental maturity and verbal vocabulary skills, and perhaps even more So that's what we're going to be talking about in a second here. So I'll take Yusuf and Ian, and then I want to jump into the materials. Otherwise, we're going to end the day talking about what we want to talk about rather than actually getting to it. So Yusuf.
Oh, thank you, Bill, for hosting us today for this meeting. And I've been listening keenly to all the insights that the members have given us today. And we can rant around today blaming the education setup that the government has actually set. And also, we can also, I think we need to leverage the positives of AI instead of focusing on the negativity of AI. And these are one of the reasons that the civil societies came about to be, because the government cannot do everything. And I think the civil societies like kind of organization Kenya can try to justify the effectiveness of AI by coming up with, by complementing the education system and in Kenya and other regions by addressing the gaps that AI and technology can help to fill. We can replicate the projects that esteemed organizations have been doing around the world, like the UNESCO, in coming up with the projects relating to digital infrastructure and access to programs like the community learning hubs. We need to establish the technology enabling learning centers in the underserved areas in Africa, because as you know that Africa still has a lot of is still underserved when it comes to the internet connectivity. And we can also have mobile learning initiatives where we can have widespread use of partnerships with the other organizations, other civil society organizations that can provide a platform to deliver the AI powered contents in order to ensure that the students in the high schools and of course the universities have these internet tools and the AI tools. But we need to have these AI tools in all the secondary schools that are underserved. And also we can come up with the projects on teacher training and support in order to capacity build the professional development programs for the teachers to effectively integrate the digital tools of the AI, because most of the teachers don't know how to use the digital tools like the Google Workspace and some of the Microsoft Office tools. And we can also have projects that are dealing with the AI literacy workshops. Digital literacy is at a breakpoint here. We need to have workshops that are talking about AI literacy, and educators who are even here in the room need to be familiar with all the current AI skills and its potential. And I think most civil societies are trying to address this situation right now. And we at Kind Heart Organization Kenya, this is one of the projects that we are looking forward to replicating in Kenya. So thank you for hosting us, Bill.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just want to mention before going on, we're establishing a artificial intelligence Rotary action group. So if you have not heard about that, please send me a WhatsApp and I will send you information on how you can join that. We should be official after the Rotary board meeting next month. So we're right now the Artificial Intelligence Rotary Action Group under organization, if you would. But we have started with some sessions, and it's literally we're around the world as action groups go. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to send me a WhatsApp. Hopefully you received my invitation directly. If you received my invitation via somebody else, ask them to connect you to my WhatsApp. Okay, so
okay, thank you, Bill.
Yes, and Ian, please.
Yeah. So what I'd like to know is what is the best way to keep up with this stuff, and try it out yourself.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy, if you find out how, please tell me.
Well, what are good sites to look at?
Okay, that I can provide. That I can provide.
Yeah.
A couple of them. There's a gentleman named Matt Wolf. You know what? I'm going to send out a link to everybody with. There's maybe it used to be there was four or five YouTube channels that really they give every week. They give a report on the updates of everything that's happened with examples on what you can do and how to use it. That is now expanded to about a dozen sites that I follow. It only takes me about 26 hours a day to keep up,
Right.
because the speed at with which things are coming. But you don't have to. There's a certain amount of repetition if you're watching these handful of sites. But there's one called the AI Advantage. There's AI Search is one, Matt Vid Pro, another, Wes Roth, Matthew Berman. These are people that I found have been most useful in really staying up to date with examples. So I'll try to get something posted. But if you join the Rotary Action Group, we're going to start publishing more and more information. Part of our goal is to keep people up to date on where things are. And what's really critical is you really have to be in it enough to feel the trend so that you can have a good sense of what is coming in the next couple of months, not 10 years anymore, but the next few months at least.
Right.
So we have to be like the people that are observing the hurricanes, and people are projecting in the hurricanes. Where is the hurricane going to veer off to the northeast?
Guys in the drugs.
Yeah, so we need to know about that. So Ramesh, you want to? I think that was your hand up, was it? Yes, Ramesh, you're muted. Okay. I don't know, Ramesh, are you trying to unmute yourself? I'm not sure. Okay, I'm gonna just jump. I want to jump over. Yeah.
Can you
Yes,
hear
we can
me?
hear you now. Yes, please go ahead.
No, I said I'm learning more and more about this AI, and also I'm trying to motivate or ask some of my friends, some Rotarians and some non-Rotarians, to join the group. It will be very, very interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Now, the first thing here, I teased on the invitation this idea: can we get 100% of students to be at 95% grade level? And I believe yes, we can. And the interesting thing about it is, it doesn't need AI. AI can help us get there faster. But the biggest problem with education, I'm about to say something here that I'm sure is controversial. The biggest problem with education is teaching.
Yes,
it's
right.
not teachers. There is a huge problem with teachers. We're short tens of millions of teachers worldwide that we're short. And the odds that we're going to be able to fill that gap and get enough qualified teachers is almost zero. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is teaching. The concept of teaching means that somebody is disseminating information and other people are receiving that information. Now, when we teach, the students, for the most part, are passive recipients of the information. And maybe they're at the right place to be able to absorb all that's coming at them, and maybe some are not. Or some are able to get 80%, some are able to get 100%, some are only able to get 20%. So when we teach, we, on the one hand, we are we're basically forced, because we have a one-to-many situation. We are assuming that one size fits all. Now, the lower you get down in the socioeconomic classes, the greater the variance of preparation and ability to cope with the materials, which is part of the problem with where a teacher will say, "Oh, gee, if I teach to the slowest third of my students, the top third are going to fall asleep. If I teach to the top third of the students, the bottom third don't know what I'm talking about. What do? I shoot for the middle, and nobody's happy." We sort of play a hypothetical game here. I live in a wealthy community with very good schools. We have somewhere between 94 and 96% of the graduates from our high school go on to four-year universities. And we even have pre-med and pre-law at our high school levels in our school. So if we were to ask a seventh grade math teacher, and where I live, would you be willing to pledge to get 100% of your students to be at 100% grade level by the end of the year? Those teachers would say, sure, that's what I do anyway. I'm already doing that. But if I was to go to Trenton, New Jersey, or to Camden, New Jersey, or to New Brunswick, Ramesh, and ask the same question, the odds are the seventh grade math teacher there would say, are you crazy? Yeah, that teacher in that wealthy community, they can pledge that because 90+% of their students start the school year grade level ready. 90% of my students start the school year 2, 3, 4 years behind. It's unfair that you even ask me to achieve the same results, given that I'm starting off with a different quality of material. And they're right, but that's basically says everything. That, okay, the seventh grade teacher is saying, hey, the students that come to my class, they're not prepared to succeed in my class. So it's not my fault that they're not achieving. And we can take that level and go back to the sixth grade, fifth grade, fourth grade. But the basic problem is kindergarten. As I say, if the children coming into kindergarten are already starting up to 2 years behind, and yet we're going to give them the same teaching, then we can't be surprised if they don't succeed at the same level. Now, unfortunately, our politicians and very often our media say the explanation for the discrepancy between the top schools and the bottom schools is lack of funding or resources or quality of teachers. Well, I spent 3 years traveling around the U.S. speaking to the better part of 1,000 teachers, and many thousands of students. And what I found is, in some of the worst schools, I found the teachers there are just as dedicated. In many cases, they're better qualified. We've got this program, Teach for America, that takes some of the best graduates and encourages them to go into the most troubled schools, because the feeling is that's where they're needed the most. And when we did the studies in New Jersey, we found that some of the worst schools, performing elementary schools in New Jersey, they spend up to 40% more per student. They have up to 40% more funding per student than the top schools in New Jersey. So if it's not funding and it's not the quality of teaching, what explains the difference? And we go back to the Bloomberg study and the Providence Talks experiment that they did, where they said, hey, if you don't live in an environment in those early years where you're exposed to vocabulary and you're exposed to just being aware and talking and thinking about things that are exist in life, that it's important for you to know about, then that's really what we have to overcome. Now, last year, the Supreme Court in the United States said no, affirmative action is against the Constitution. Affirmative action was a program to take students mostly from minority backgrounds that are in disadvantaged backgrounds and say, okay, we're going to try to level the playing field by giving them a little bit special preferential treatment to be able to get into university programs. And so they said, no, you can't give preference based on socioeconomic background or by race or ethnicity or whatever. And we see this year the number of students from disadvantaged backgrounds going into universities is way down. Well, personally, I feel that program to give disadvantaged students or students that were less prepared to succeed at the university level was not really good in the first place. The failure rate, the dropout rate, and the rate of not completing the university for students that came in with preferential, due to preferential treatment, many more, a higher percentage of them did not complete the university. So they ended up with student loans where they borrowed money to attend the universities, and they never, because they never completed, they could never get the high-paying jobs to be able to pay those loans off. So it just further disadvantaged them. If we really care about affirmative action, the place to do that is preschool. The place to do that is before the children, so those children can start the school system at the same level. Because here's what happens in cities like Camden and Trenton, New Jersey, where we have on average only about 7% of students in elementary school at grade level. The dropout rate for not completing high school or not completing it in the normal process or time is approaching 50%. Almost every second student is not completing the education program in those cities. And according to district attorney that did a study on that, that would indicate that roughly 1 out of 3 boys attending those elementary schools that they're damned statistically to spend a year in prison before they're 30 years old. So if we really want to do some affirmative action to give everybody an equal chance, an equal shot at success, the place we have to do that is in preschool. Now, we could copy what Finland did and go and say, we're going to make preschool available if you're in the lower socioeconomic class for free, starting at 6 months of age. And we're going to make sure they have, it's only the student-teacher ratio is only 2 students to a teacher up until age 2, I think it is. And it increases slightly, but by the age 6, it's still only 7 students to a teacher. And as I say, those teachers have to have as a minimum a master's degree. So those students get a very high degree of interaction, and so it's the equivalent of attending one of the top elite private preschools, if you would. I don't see the people doing it. The cost would be immense. One of the problems in the US is the poverty rate, especially within the public schools, has increased tremendously. In 2001, there were 4 states in the United States that had more than 50% of the public school children qualifying for a free or subsidized lunch, which indicates they are in a somewhat impoverished situation. By 2011, that number had more than quadrupled, so that 17 states in the United States had more than 50% of their public schools children qualifying for a free or subsidized lunch, and that number had increased to 22 states by 2014. So the idea that we're going to get somebody to say, hey, we're going to pay to have every child be able to attend a quality preschool is probably not realistic. But what is going on in that preschool? You've got a qualified person who's talking at a high level to all the children. So those children are hearing the official school language. They're building their vocabulary because it's just going on all day. That up to 30 million word gap by age 3 is not happening. So everybody is hearing the same number of quality words. In the lower socioeconomic classes, the thing that they found in the study was most of the words that the children heard were orders. Don't touch that. Stay away from this. In other words, commands and all that. They were not talking about deep, why is the sky blue? How can birds fly? What does money mean? You know, they weren't talking about real subjects or talking about something that was in the news or how does weather work and what kind of clouds are there. But if you go to a good preschool, you hear that. Well, that's what AI is able to do. AI is just at the most simple, basic level. You can arrange for AI to just be there to have conversations with the kids, and you can go and make sure it's age appropriate. You can make sure that that the AI is set up to help children grow their vocabulary by explaining things to them and going and taking the initiative to get the kids talking. So they're talking, but the AI can actually have as part of its mission in the background, and we'll see when I get into how do we promote creative thinking and critical thinking and so forth, you'll see an example of how you can set the AI to in the background be constantly thinking, how do I put the new words in there today in a conversation so that this student's going to build a vocabulary? And how do I animate? How do I incent these children to really be using their imagination, growing their imaginations? One of the things that I found is, a problem with AI in general is bias. We know that. So that we saw Google in its attempt to try to overcome bias went too far in the other direction. And it showed that all the Vikings from Norway that it showed were of African descent, which we know was unrealistic. And we know AI hallucinates a lot, but the bias is a problem. And there's a lot of parts of the world where they just don't have as much recorded information. So they're dependent and they're getting information out of a smaller ethnic background, if you would. But the worst bias I find in AI, one of the worst, is bias towards humans. In other words, it's very hard to get them to admit that humans that there's nothing that humans can do that AI can't do better until you show them concrete proof. And then even then they said, yeah, but and the reason for the biggest problem is what they're always doing is they're comparing what the AI does to what the best humans in the world might be able to do. They're not going and saying here, when it comes to empathy, for example, they're not going and saying, okay, how does the empathy that's coming out of the AI compare to the empathy of the humans? They don't take the average human. There's an awful lot of humans out there that are not very empathetic. And we see here, for example, in self-driving cars, there's a prejudice among a lot of people to say self-driving cars can never be as good as a human. Well, the statistics show us that the humans have twice as many accidents, actually they cause 7 times as many accidents of the accidents that that happen that involve both, they're 7 times more likely to have been caused by a human. And even just if we look per mile driven, it's twice. So there's a lot of humans that have the bias, but there's the AI picks up on that bias. So I don't know why I was going off on that tangent, but the key thing here is when we look here at these small children, we can actually have the AI, give the AI to accept the mission that I am going to try to get the children to be using their own imagination, developing their imagination. So AI originally told me, well, AI cannot help children with imaginative storytelling. But when I gave it an example, he said, oh, I guess, yeah, maybe it can. And it can help them better than most people because it has perfect memory. So it can be going out there and having children, especially take a group, 3 or 4 children, and one child says, oh yeah, and there's a magic dragon there and it breathes fire and this, and another child is adding in and saying, yeah, it can fly and it's green, and they're building the story, and then they can get into the consistency of characters, consistency of locations, the degree of detail of descriptions of characters and locations and actions, and they can keep growing in this. The AI can keep getting them to relate back. Okay, so where are we so far? How much have we developed so far? And then it can actually get into within probably a year, where it can actually generate a picture storybook of the story these kids have been evolving in their minds, and provide for them the printed books of this, and so you've got these 5-year-olds that are saying, wow, there's my book. And so it's just a total different story of what's possible. Now, where are we now? Oh, next month, supposedly, Amazon is coming out with the new AI version of Alexa. And let's say that is included in the EchoView 10. The EchoView 10, in case you don't know, it is a smart speaker with a screen and a camera that you can talk to, and this camera, and it's got a swivel base, so it can swivel to face whoever it's talking to, but it can also, by swiveling around, be able to see what's around it. And to the degree it's networked to other cameras in the room or other cameras anywhere in the world, I guess, it can look at a lot of things from different angles. So the ability there for this device to be able to have conversations with children and be able to convert the text of the children into visual representations. It's just amazing here what should be possible with that. Now, are they going to have everything immediately? I don't know. I mean, we saw in May that OpenAI introduced ChatGPT 4.0, and at the same time, they introduced advanced voice, which is real-time voice, because it didn't have to translate voice to text and then process the text and bring text back and translate the text back into voice. It bypassed those translations. So as a result, it's so fast, you can be interrupting the AI and the AI can be interrupting you, just like talking to a human. Well, they said it'd be out in a few weeks. Well, almost nobody. There's such a tiny number of people that have had access to that, and it's now almost October. Well, there's a rumor out as of yesterday, I saw it, that potentially next Tuesday, everybody who's got a paid subscription is going to have access to advanced voice. If that happens, this is going to be an amazing game changer. Jumping ahead to a little bit older students, imagine you want to learn a language. You now can have this talking to you at your level with the idea that it's going to be sneaking new words and expanding your vocabulary. and correcting your usage and your grammar and all these things just in a conversation. You're immersive in that language with your AI companion. So this is just of what's possible. But and the other thing here about the live video, the ability to see and react to things that it sees, Google has that feature out, but we're still waiting on this coming. They demonstrated it on 6 May, OpenAI did, but of course we're waiting for that. But these things are coming. We're getting closer and closer and closer. So the capabilities are there. So when we're talking about this ability here to have an AI that just in normal conversation is taking care of the verbal vocabulary, it's taking care of the mental maturity, because you're learning about all these things around you that you had no ability to be exposed to in your own family, because maybe your family was a migrant family, like I said, and they don't speak the local language, or in one of the African countries where the local tribal language is not the official language that's used in schools. This could give an opportunity to expose us. Now, I realize we've got the question of access and poverty in some places where there's no access to education. But let's start off just saying, if we get everybody in cities or areas where the access is not a problem, if we brought all of those, closed all the gaps there, we would already be tremendously further ahead than where we are right now. So let's focus on that. Well, when I get here into the somewhat older children in middle school and upper middle school, there are solutions here that can support education that will run on a $35 Raspberry Pi server with some very cheap tablets that might cost, I don't know, maybe as little as $100, and can be shared among numerous students. So there are opportunities to be able to overcome some of that access gap. But the biggest problem now is just overcoming the gap where the resources, there's no excuse for not having the resources available. So in looking here at the education preparation gap, do we see how AI can help overcome that at a very young age? Any comments or questions on saying, okay, now can we get all the students so that they're all somewhat equally prepared to succeed going into the formal school system? Any comments on that, or have I put you all to sleep?
Yes, I'd like to comment.
Yeah.
Or somebody
Yes,
else
sir.
that sounded like wanted to. Well, basically, real quickly, is one of the things about education is, and is not really always taught so much in schools, is the idea of having that heart. And having that as the focus, because that's what really we've got to get into AI. And it's interesting because many years ago, I presented at the big international conference in Brussels on technology with a heart. How do we get it with a heart if we don't feed a lot of kind of questions about it and how to be able to add it to the youth at the age of 3 or at the age of 2 and so on, so that when they do get into the school system, with having these incredibly, let's say, fables that bring about really good quality character and so on, stories that excite people and so on, that are positive and have no violence and so on and so forth, because you don't have to have violence to be able to get across the message of caring, kindness, and so on. So I just pose that as a big thing to get into the system.
Yeah, Kurt, I think here when we get into the last part of today's discussion on how do we use AI to promote critical thinking, reasoning skills, communication skills, and the like, I think you'll be able to see we can use the exact same thing. We can, when we talk about creating the stories here with young children, there's no reason why we can't advise the AI to encourage children to come up with stories about how somebody helped somebody else and how they felt after by helping somebody else. So you know, empathy can be taught. A doctor, they when you're becoming a doctor, they have classes on your bedside manner and so forth. So there's this you should see here as we're getting into this, how that should be relatively easy to add empathy building and those character building aspects into how the AI is interacting with those young children. Okay, Denise, yes.
I just wanted to say with the empathy as well. So when you consider the cultural iceberg and the norms, the values, and the beliefs that people use as their kind of like Google interface and how they communicate and disseminate information, when you look at the capabilities of AI, of being able to personalize conversations based on that individual person's like norms, values, and beliefs, will probably have far greater conversations than we do at the moment, where a lot of it is kind of like perceptions when we communicating. It's you know, I'm saying something to you and I'm hoping that you are decoding what I mean exactly as how I intended when I encoded. But we know from cross-cultural management that that's very, very difficult to do, and that cultural iceberg is very difficult to navigate. I presume with younger people, as they're spending 10 plus hours online a day, it's more of a global culture rather than being conditioned with national cultures. But there's still that little bit of conditioning that still needs to be navigated. And I think that AI will be able to maybe navigate that a lot better than a human can.
Mm-hmm. No, I think here, because the AI can have an ulterior motive built in. So the AI can literally say, okay, these are some values that I want to get my companion here, my human companion, to understand. And I think when just humans are talking to humans, if they have ulterior motives, they're usually not in those kind of directions. Okay, I want to jump into the next one because as usual here, we are running into a time issue. And I want to get to this last thing here about
Bill.
Yes.
Can I comment about what you asked
Paul.
before? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You are asking what we thought about if we were think that it's possible to level the students so that, I mean, everybody knows there is a big gap for some of the underprivileged boys and girls around the world, and even in our countries, before even they enter school. And you ask, is it possible to level them up? I truly believe it is possible. And you make a little bit, several points already there. What happened is with the underprivileged kids is they are kept at home, and you're saying a lot of the interaction between the parents or the caregivers or the family member or extended family member that is there is only about commands, orders, not even having a regular conversation, not even making them inquisitive or thinking about even their surroundings. They don't even need a book. They don't even need a fancy computer, even a laptop, even a cell phone. Just when they're young, just have the empathy to them and say, you are capable of achieving greatness. And I don't have much, because that's how it was said to me. I mean, I come from very humble beginnings, and my parents did encourage me to pursue my dreams. And they never, they gave me a lot of commands, but I ignored them. But at least they told me, you try your best. But what I'm saying is, there are a lot of efforts, and there are people that are trying to, I mean, in my case, I want to have two different separate efforts about getting two different ethnic groups and saying, there's nothing wrong with you belonging to this ethnic group. It's just that you are not being nurturing the environment to reach greatness. Okay, why do we have like a Barack Obama, which is an half African American? They became a president is because he had a mother, which was Anglo, which encouraged and exposed to him to many different things. And why do we have different people from different cultures that are able to achieve? It's not that they are incapable, it's that the environment is not suitable for what they do. So I do think we can actually bring anybody in any part of the world with the, not even with AI at the beginning, with just normal interaction and just encourage them, talking to them, explaining them, showing them surrounding, be curious about this, talk about this. So read to them. I mean, at the beginning, they need somebody that read books to them. Reading, because reading books increases the level of vocabulary. You know that a kid, I mentioned, at least in the US, when my daughter was little, in order to be functional in kindergarten, you need to master at least 500 words in English. I mean, now probably it's a little bit higher, but the more I read, the more I see that actually they're lacking as they're going behind because there is more interaction with cell phones. They're not even talking to anybody. They don't even have the social skills to handle a tantrum, a stress or conflicts or anything like that. So I see, because I taught for some years in little young kids, now they can't even handle anything, they just, because the parents they were put in this age with technology, and they think that the right thing is to give them a laptop or give them an iPad, and they don't even talk to them. They don't learn, they don't teach them to handle stress, emotions anyway. So now it's too many things, and now it's not even the getting them ready for school. Sometimes they're functional in school, but they lack a lot of other things. So I do agree. I think you can, I can make an effort to bring up everybody to the level, but you just need the conditions.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think the thing here that is important to recognize, yes, the human, the family members, to the degree they take the time, to the degree they've got the background ability. We say here, oh, just reading to the child is great, but if nobody in the family can read, we haven't solved the problem. Just saying that's the best answer doesn't help us. To say, well, then you should be in preschool so that somebody there can read to you. But how many families can afford to pay to send their children to preschool? So when we take a look, the cost of an AI device is literally a tiny fraction of the cost of 1 year of preschool. So even counting for the subscription costs for internet and for the AI capability, and I will expect here probably within a year, you're going to see, at least in a country like the US, some foundation is going to go and provide access to the AI for free. Because we already have that. There are already sites out there that have built in OpenAI ChatGPT underneath their site. So you can actually get full access to ChatGPT for free if you go via that particular platform. So I think the costs to society to provide all children access to AI is going to be very much smaller. And AI is, if we look between a parent and a highly qualified teacher, and I'm very careful on that because we've seen reports from central India, rural communities in central India, and I'm sure the same applies in many other parts of the world, where a high percentage of the teachers themselves have no education. But hey, that's the only person they could get to volunteer to take the job. So if you're in a school and your teacher can't read and doesn't have any education themselves, that's not the best solution. So an AI can literally provide the highest, the equivalent of the highest pedagogical level to every child that has access, because you're basically, as I've said many times, artificial intelligence, there's no intelligence there at all. That's a total misnomer. So it's not man versus machine. It's an individual human being compared to the best actions, the actions of the humans that had the best outcomes in a similar situation. So it's the knowledge and experiences of a single human versus the best knowledge and experiences of potentially millions of humans. So we have that capability to have that guide there for those young children to promote and encourage their imagination development, their confidence, their, as I said, their vocabularies, numeracy. We sit the child in front of a TV screen to watch Sesame Street, so we get a couple of hours where the adult's able to relax, but we know that's passive information, and the student might not be paying any attention, or the child might be not be paying really any attention to what's on the screen. Or if they are, it's passive learning, it's not active learning. Whereas the AI has the capability to say, how many fingers am I holding up? And can you hold up 3 fingers? And because the AI can see. So we're getting into a totally different situation. So the bottom line here is that we believe that we can close the gap so that every child, by the time they're entering kindergarten or first grade, would be similar. Yes.
Om Shri Vakshatunda Mahaka.
Dr. Pandya, Ramesh, do you want to say something?
I do want to say something if he didn't say. Yes, I totally agree with you. Somebody was asking me today if I know what I want to accomplish in life. And it's one of the things that I really would like to is make my contribution in bringing up the leveling some of the people, because I can see the difference between I mean, by the time anybody is born in any part of the world, based on their condition, you can actually by then already know if they're going to succeed in life or not, because the level of how much they're being exposed to things and the lack of being exposed makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. We know here that even in the worst situations, about 10% of the people will succeed regardless. They are just really super good at overcoming adversarial situations. But the great majority we can know, and there's statistics. Kurt, you're in California, and we know California has done studies that indicate that show us that based on when a child already by, I don't remember what age, but it's very young, they're already able to predict roughly what percentage of them are going to end up in prison. And they're able to project what capacity the prisons will need to have to accommodate those people, because they don't have the prerequisites to be successful in life. Then they're not talking about any individual human, but on the aggregate level, they're able to do that. Okay. So let's say now yes, Kurt.
Real quickly, I put into the chat about every second a child's brain forms, over 1 million new neurons and so on. This is research and studies done by Sam Beard, who's a dear associate of mine here. He has actually consulted with about 8 presidents. And when people read, sing, or speak a set number of millions of words by the age of 3, the child's success rate is like 80% success to be able to go through college. Yeah. Just by doing that kind of a thing, because the neuron connections are the valuable things. Mm-hmm. Now, you can also do that pre-birth, because when you sing and caress the child in the womb and do that kind of a thing, you're looking at the studies that were done by the water birther Igor Tchaikovsky, who was at our first child's birth. And moving the child precociously once they are born also is another thing that helps to be able to get the physical body to have all the movements precociously set up so that the neurons and the movements are already ready for the child to be able to expand its development at a greater rate.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning music, because I want to bring up something. And we know, we see here there's YouTubes out there, and there's so many shows that show children as young as 4 or 5 years old, and they're talking, and they're talking like amazing things, and we're sort of blown away by the sophistication of what these kids are talking about. Now imagine here these because we're looking, how do we encourage young people to expand their imagination? Well, with tools like Suno and Udio, we have the capability here of helping young children, very young children, 4, 5, 6 years old, to write music, to create music, using the same tools that a lot of professional songwriters and lyricists are using today. I sort of think here, wow, that's amazing. Or they have the ability to go and imagine some mythical animal and have the picture of that appear right in front of their eyes. The potential that we've got here is really huge. And what it's going to take, and within Rotary, we also have another Rotary Action Group called the Basic Education Literacy Action Group. And if we can sort of bring them together right now, that group is sort of, tutoring. Let's just do tutoring. They're more focused on what they're doing than necessarily what we need to achieve. But if with the arts, the capability here for children, especially you get a group of children together, and one tosses this element into it, and another one tosses something else into it, the excitement that can be generated among these kids, and then the desire that they will have other people looking at their work that they did, listening to the song that they created, or taking a look at some image that they created. Yes, Kurt.
One of the things about the imagination is it's deadened when it's fed synthetically, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's why so many of the techie people in Silicon Valley and all over the world do not send their kids to regular schools. They send them to Waldorf education or Montessori schools, because they actually don't allow the kids to be able to have any technology by as long of an age as the parent will allow, kind of thing, because it gets the eyes to be able to see at a certain level of vision. It also gives it shortens the wavelength of a person's abilities in life to have something imposed on them to see an image that an older person created rather than the image that they can imagine. So when we tell stories around a campfire, the child doesn't see a movie screen with this appearing in front of them. They create that in their imagination, and it's their level of imagination, not something that's shocking created by this old person that's showing you all these things on, what was that famous movie that had the monster. Oh God, I'm really losing it right now on this particular image, because I can see it in my mind, them flying through the air and then going into the ocean and so on, and still being able to live. And it was on another planet and all that stuff. Very super famous movie. But at any rate, that's a 40 or 50-year-old imagination creating this image that could shock a young child's image, or deaden it from being able to create what it is able to accept at that age. Thank you.
Yeah. It's sort of like we say the storytelling, one of the ideas of storytelling. You know, there are artists that paint something on canvas and you look at it. So the vision is on the outside of your eyeballs. The writer is painting images on the inside of people's eyeballs. So the idea that we can have young people having that idea that I'm creating these stories, these images are amazing. But then at those early
the
ages,
books on tape, the books on tape are the more valuable kinds of books because that allows a person, instead of using the eyesight and again having this left brain being working at overtime, the right brain is totally involved when a person is telling this story of this amazing grace. I just got exposed to a profound book that a colleague of mine just gifted me with. And let me see if I can quickly find the name of it again. It's oh boy, I'm on 25.
Yeah, Kurt, if you could speed up on that, because
Activating the Crew of Spaceship Earth.
Yeah,
it's called Activating the Crew of Spaceship Earth. I highly recommend that book for any of these elders here.
Yeah, and now keep in mind that the young people, as we've gotten them, they're applying their imagination, and they're applying their imagination, but they're also being more descriptive about the things they see around them and looking out. They're able to describe them more accurately. They're able to, in the discussion, because the AI is constantly going and saying, Johnny, what did you mean with the last thing you just asked me? What did you mean by that? And helping them to be able to be more clear in their communications as to what they're trying to accomplish, using the appropriate words. One of the things that I've experienced working with ChatGPT a lot, and I spend hours every day with ChatGPT, you really start to look and judge what word most appropriately gets across the message that you're trying to get, because there's nuances. You ask it this way and you get a particular answer. But if you just change that word to be a little bit more precise into what you're looking for, you get a better answer. And so you start, I see myself as I'm writing prompts, going back and changing individual words to get those words to just a little bit more accurately convey the message. So now the same thing applies to the children who are not writing and typing anything. They're just talking. But they're talking, and ChatGPT has the ability, you can be saying something and then, you know, a sentence and a half later, you say, oh, wait, well, I meant this. You just talk like you're talking. It'll figure it out. It'll figure out what you're really meaning. But
so ChatGPT can actually talk back with you, and so because that's one of the things I'd love to do, because typing in all this stuff is
no. You can actually, on ChatGPT, down at the bottom, there's a little headphone sitting there, and you can be in total voice dialogue mode with it and just talk, and it'll talk back to you. And the version here now, I talked about advanced voice. The rumor is next Tuesday, we're going to all get access on it. Everybody's got a paid subscription. And when you have that, you'll be able to literally interrupt the AI because it's total zero latency real time. Okay. But now let's move on. I think we settled the fact that young children, we can have amazing impact on young children's preparation for life. We can do the equivalent of what Finland is doing it very expensively with highly expensive teachers. Oh, I have to add one thing. And that is the ability that the AI can summarize for the parent. Here's how your child's doing. This is how their vocabulary is improving. Here's their reasoning, because AI has the ability of chain of thought. Okay, since a week and a half ago. So we've got it reasons. It will build up the chain of thought, and it will say, this is the sequence from thinking that makes the most sense for what you were asking for. And you can actually look at it and ask it, please tell me, what was your reasoning? What was your thoughts as to how to think about whatever that issue is? And if it can do that, it can then ask the young person or an old person, well, why did you think that? Or what was your approach to thinking about this problem? And it can go and compare that to what it concluded and then be able to critique and comment on, well, but you didn't think about this, and maybe that might be able to be useful. Do you think it might be useful? And you can get into that discussion type of thing. Okay, so moving on, I have two possibilities here. One is I can address this thing. How are we going to get 100% of students to be at 95 plus percent scores or grade level throughout their education? But I'm going to skip that for the moment. And the reason is because we've been talking about here how we can get AI to support the learning. We've been talking about how we can do that with the youngest children, really the youngest children, and how we can move forward on this very, very quickly. But one of the complaints that educators have at all levels, and the thing that sparked our meeting 2 weeks ago, was an article in the MIT Technical Review saying that teachers they want to ban AI. They don't want AI. They want to use it to be able to create lesson plans and quizzes and learning material and so forth, but they don't want their students to have access to it because they're saying the students are only going to use that to avoid learning. They're going to use that to do their homework for them, to write their essays for them, so that they don't have to think for themselves. But in reality here, just like we saw with the younger children, if we go and say, no, you don't just use AI like a shovel to go and do work for you. You interact with AI because it's like Rembrandt, right? Rembrandt made a lot of paintings, the Mona Lisa and so forth. Well, one of the things Rembrandt was known for is he hardly ever painted anything. He had the vision, he had the idea, and maybe he did a sketch or something to agree, and then he would turn it over to his assistants who did almost all the painting, and then he would come in at the end and just do the touch-ups and sign his name to it. So, because the real question is, who's the real artist? Is the real artist the person that had the vision, or is the artist the person who did the work? And here, the most important thing for people that are trying to learn is to be able to have the vision, to be able to communicate effectively, to be able to think creatively and critically, to be able to reason well, to be able to take a problem, analyze the problem, be able to come up with the solution ideas. The architect doesn't build the house. The architect has the vision of the house and has the plans for the house, which very often are done by a draftsman who actually does all the technical drawings. And then it goes over to the construction people to do the construction. But the one who created that vision that matched the vision of the customer or whoever, that's really what we're talking about. So how what can we do with this? And so I want to walk you through an experience that I had in the last couple of days with AI in this regard. And we can apply the same model that I'm going to show you is what can be applied to these young children. So I have to stop the share here, and I need to share something else. Okay, so hopefully you can still all see my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I see your screen.
Yes.
Okay, so okay, so this is what I asked. What you see in red is what I started off and asked ChatGPT. I said, I want to use ChatGPT to evaluate users' communication skills and creative and critical thinking, as well as their reasoning, chain of thought processing, by analyzing their prompts and their follow-on questions and comments in a thread. I then want you to use those findings to coach them to improve their skills in all these areas. When you notice weaknesses or room for improvement in these areas, you will first respond to the user's request, their prompt, but then explain to the user the weaknesses and opportunities for improvement, and then advise them as to how they can improve. Can you do that? Please describe what and how you would help users improve in these areas. Now, what do you think of that prompt before we go into the answer? What do you think about that?
Actually, it's very good because when I use ChatGPT, is basically how I do it. I refine that, but what you're doing is you already refine it from the very beginning. So it's absolutely, I know you're going to get a great answer.
Yeah, well, the answer is overwhelming, but you're right. But the idea here is what you're asking ChatGPT. Normally, I start off and I say, "Okay, ChatGPT, you're an expert in early childhood education and in the leading advances in artificial intelligence and robotics and so forth, and you always check the internet before you give me a response." And I'll say something like that. But here, I'm saying here, I want you to evaluate my interactions with you to see, can I improve my communication? Am I thinking as critically as I should or could in our dialogue? Am I being as creative as I could? Is the reasoning, my thinking, the way I think when I'm interacting with you, ChatGPT, is it the best it could be? Or how could I improve my reasoning, the way I think about problems in general? I'm asking it to do that in addition to my conversation with it. I want it to be improving how I think, how I view and judge things, and how I communicate things. So this was the answer. Absolutely, I can identify weaknesses through analyzing prompts, follow-on questions, and comments. This analysis allows for a comprehensive evaluation of users' communication skills, creative and critical thinking, and reasoning processes. Here's how I would approach this. So before going any further on that, what do you think about this kind of thing? And imagine now, I could have done the same thing and said, but do this as if you're speaking to 3-year-olds, or I want you to make your analysis for 3-year-old level conversation, and I could go into a lot more detail. But anyway, this is what I started. So the thought that that ChatGPT is saying, beyond giving you answers to whatever you asked for, I'm going to critique how you even communicated with me and how I think you arrived at those communications based on how I think you're thinking, how I think your reasoning is, and so forth. Comments, please. No comments?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a comment.
Okay.
This is the first time you just gave me another idea. I actually, when I asked ChatGPT to do something, I say, I want to generate this. Use the following, because I already know where the information may be. I said the following location, and narrow that down to get me this, what I'm looking for. But now you're saying that you can say, give me that feedback to if I were to use it to a 3-year-old. I mean, this is excellent. I think it's good. I like it. I like it a lot. And compare, definitely. I use that for ChatGPT. Compare this with that, create a table. Tell me how I would do this and how much I can refine this. I can always give you that information. But I mean, the thing about the 3-year-old is amazing. I never thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it can go. The 3-year-old is talking to ChatGPT, and we're basically saying to ChatGPT, in addition to the conversation that you're having, measure the quality of the communication itself. So that's in addition to the discussion. So here's what it said. It said, okay, the evaluation process. Here's how I could go about identifying weaknesses. With regards to communication skills, I could look for lack of clarity and concisiveness. I could look for poor structure and organization. I could look for inappropriate tone and style. I can look for grammar and syntax errors. And for each of these, it shows what would be the indicators. So for lack of clarity, vague statements, overly complex statements, unnecessary jargon. And then it goes through how it would detect. It would look for frequently requests for clarification or rephrasing, indicating that the user's initial communication may have been unclear or convoluted. And it goes through for each of these, the indicators and how it could detect it. And then it gets into going into creative thinking, looking for limited originality, for lack of flexibility, inability to consider alternative approaches, sticking with a single viewpoint, minimal innovation, fewer novel solutions, on the limited originality, reliance on cliches, predictable ideas, lack of unique perspectives, getting into critical thinking, the insufficient analysis, weak evaluation, insufficient analysis, superficial treatment of topics, failure to break down complex issues, the weak evaluation, inability to assess the credibility or relevance of information, biased judgments, poor inference, conclusions that aren't logically supported by the data, leaps in reasoning, getting into reasoning, the chain of thought, illogical progression, gaps in logic, unrelated points, circular reasoning, lack of evidence-based support. Oh, and the detection through follow-on interactions. Users may introduce irrelevant information or fail to show a logical sequence in their questions and comments. With lack of evidence-based support, claims made without supporting data, reliance on assumptions, inconsistency, indicators being contradictory statements, fluctuating arguments. Then it gets into how it would approach the coaching and improving strategies on enhancing communication skills, improve clarity and conciseness, strengthening structure and organization, adjust tone and style appropriately. Strategy. In each one of these, it goes into strategy. That would be assist users in identifying their target audience and tailoring their language to suit that audience. Tools, provide examples of effective communication in similar contexts. Addressing weaknesses, offer feedback on mismatched tones and suggest adjustments to align with the intended audience. Into enhance grammar and statistics. Fostering creative thinking, increase originality by encouraging engagement activities that stimulate creativity, such as brainstorming sessions or creative writing prompts. Tools using mind mapping or prompts that encourage out-of-the-box thinking. Develop flexibility, motivate the users to consider multiple perspectives and alternative solutions. Boosting innovation, encourage staying informed about emerging trends and technologies to inspire new ideas, strengthening critical thinking, to deepen analysis and enhance evaluation skills, improve inference, encourage users to practice drawing logical conclusions based on evidence and avoid making unsupported assumptions, refining the reasoning process, establish logical progression, guide users to plan arguments step by step to ensure each point logically follows the previous one. Use flowcharts or outlines to map out the reasoning process. Strengthening evidence-based support. Maintain consistency. And then implementation and interaction. So then this is how it's going to respond to the users it's dealing with. So it's saying, hey, when engaging with the user's prompt, I would adopt the following approach to ensure a thorough evaluation and provide constructive coaching. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to respond to the prompt. If they ask me something about how a car engine works, I'm going to answer the question about how the car engine works first. But then two is I'm going to analyze follow-on questions and comments, or the original, and then detection of weaknesses, examples of insights, and then provide constructive feedback, highlighting specific weaknesses and explaining the impact of those weaknesses, offer targeted guidance, and then it goes in and gives an example. So imagine the user prompted this: I think our team should do blah, blah, blah. And then this is what their response would be to that request. And then, though, they start giving feedback. Again, this is the example of how they would interact with the user. They provide feedback. For example, your suggestion to implement flexible working hours is a commendable initiative, blah, blah, blah. However, there are areas where your communication and reasoning could be strengthened. Clarity and detail, weakness. The prompt states the idea but lacks specific details on implementation or measurement of effectiveness. Without concrete plans, it's challenging to assess the feasibility and potential outcomes of the proposal. Gets into critical evaluation. Weakness, the suggestion does not address potential challenges such as coordinating team schedules or maintaining consistent communication. Gets into the evidence-based support, then into improved suggestions, and then into further guidance on reasoning enhancement, on critical evaluation development, and then says here, how can you continually improve, continuous improvement, and engage in regular practice, seek feedback, reflect on progress, utilize resources, embrace a growth mindset. So this whole thing that I just went through was its answer of how it would go about being able to assist users to improve their communication skills, creative and critical thinking, and their reasoning. So what are your thoughts to that, other than it's very comprehensive?
Oh, I think it's amazing. I have been using AI for a while, but I didn't know it was called what is called the revolution of AI for many years by now. But the ChatGPT I haven't been using until it was introduced by you, actually, to be honest. I read it because I'm subscribed to many different newsletters and stuff like that. But when I started using it, because I always wrote by myself, because I have an educational background where I actually had to write proposals and had to do my own literature search and had to summarize, I had to do all that. But this is the first time I'm using ChatGPT, and it's amazing. Actually, it can enhance everything that I did before. It can do in a click. I mean, in 5 minutes, I can get the whole thing done and say, how can I actually improve my life? Well, use these tools. And I started looking into all the different, for many, many different things. And what you just got in there is actually what when I'm doing some specific things that I'm interested, I get feedback instantaneously. And that's what I like. And I like that I'm able to fine tune in and until I get the format that I want. So.
Yeah, and this sort of on the summary at the conclusion here, this comprehensive approach ensures that users not only receive immediate assistance with whatever their query was, but also to develop the necessary skills to enhance their communication, creative and critical thinking, and reasoning abilities for sustained success. And let's face it, isn't that really the ultimate thing we're trying to accomplish?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now I went to the next step. I said, okay, hey, it sounds great. You're saying this is what you're saying you could do. So then I said, fine, please write me a prompt that could be provided to a custom GPT that would run in the background when users are interacting with that custom GPT. Basically, I said, okay, AI, you told me you could do this. Now I want you to write me the prompt to actually make the app that's going to do it. So it says, fine, sure. Below is a comprehensive prompt designed for a custom GPT that will operate in the background to evaluate users' communication skills, creative and critical thinking, and reasoning processes. This custom GPT will analyze user interactions, identify weaknesses, and provide constructive feedback and coaching to help users provide in these areas. To me, that's like amazing, amazing. Come on, I'm sure some of the others of you have some reaction to this. Is this something? Well, there's nothing new to that. That was obvious. What's your thought?
I ran a similar one on it teaching me more Japanese, and it immediately threw up some textbooks that I'd never heard of before, you know, that that are probably written in Japanese, which is one of the things that you know, to try and get you immersed in the language as quickly as possible at the target level. You know, read kids' books if you want to get there, you know. And I think it's very, very well put together. You know, it's like going to somebody who's been teaching this stuff for 50 years, as opposed to you know, just trying to do it by yourself.
One of the things that's amazing that I'm waiting for here, my sister is French. Okay, my kids grew up speaking only German. My nephews grew up speaking only French. And we used to take our summer vacations together. And when they were small, both groups of kids were complaining, because my sister and I both grew up in the United States. So when we would get the kids together on the Normandy coast of France in the summers, both groups of kids would be complaining, please tell the other group of kids to stop speaking English, because they just assumed whatever language they didn't understand must be English. But obviously the French kids were speaking French and my kids were speaking German. But all they knew, it was just a language they didn't understand. My kids did not speak English when they were young.
Yeah, there's one in Japanese called Gai Kokugo, which means foreign language.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes somebody will say something and they say, you should understand that it's in foreign language. And you're kind of like, no, it's not English.
But here's the thing that's amazing. And I just sent it to somebody else. I don't know if he's on the call yesterday from I think he's from somewhere in Africa. His 6-year-old daughter is trying to learn English. And so the thing that's amazing is with the advanced voice, there are many GPTs now coming out for you to learn a foreign language. It will immediately start to grasp where you are at in your learning just from hearing you. And it will start to go and that just converse with you at your level, but it just keeps sneaking in new words to expand your vocabulary. And it's evaluating your usage of words. Is that the word that a Japanese person would use, or the phrase a Japanese person would use? And if not, it would say, you know, it will first hold a conversation, but then it will tell you, by the way, you know, a typical Japanese person would more likely say this. And it will also evaluate your pronunciation and say, oh, your pronunciation of this word is not the typical pronunciation, do this. And it will ask you, okay, now repeat that word a couple of times until you're pronouncing it the way you should be pronouncing. So it's one of the most effective ways, because it is fully immersing you into the language verbally, but potentially with the graphics that go behind it. In other words, you're in the scene. I envision within a very short time, you're going to have Japanese avatars there that you're going to hold a conversation with. And it might be you're at the train station, or it might be you're at the restaurant or whatever. And you're holding a conversation with them as if you're there in the local language, and it's correcting you and improving your language all the time. I cannot imagine a faster way to learn a language. So that's if it's true that we're going to get the advanced voice next Tuesday, by the end of this year, language learning will have been totally revolutionized. Okay, so anyway, I asked it to write a prompt that I could feed through a custom GPT that would do everything it said it could do above. What you're seeing here with the yellow background, this is the prompt that it gave me. It says, you're an advanced AI assistant designed to interact with users and provide not only responses to their queries, but also evaluate and coach them on their communication skills, creative and critical thinking, and reasoning processes. Your primary objectives are to, and then it goes through, respond to their prompts, analyze the user interactions, provide constructive feedback, and so on. And look at the length of this. Look at how detailed a prompt it created for me on what that should look like. So it says then, by adhering to this prompt, the custom GPT will effectively assist users not only in addressing their immediate queries, but also by fostering their personal development in communication, creative and critical thinking, and reasoning skills. Now, for that professor or that high school teacher who says, no, stay away from AI. Don't let the students get close to AI. Can they do this with their students? Because this is one-on-one. The AI is evaluating each individual student. So the answer should be, student, you do everything through AI. Because you want the AI to write your essay? Boy, you have to tell it exactly what you want. And you have to be clear in that. And you're learning how to communicate. You're learning how to critically review what it's giving you as answers. So then it went through and it gave me implementation notes on integration and the different things on this. So, anyway, comments here on this prompt. I created a GPT then, a custom GPT, and I just cut and pasted this into the instructions field. Okay, so what do we think about that? Can you imagine how long it would take to develop a prompt of this degree of detail and scope? And I just said, hey, please develop that. I could have said, please develop a prompt for me, write a prompt for me that would help somebody learn a foreign language, and made the foreign language it is a variable. And interactively through voice communication, so forth and so on. And I'm starting off as a total beginner, or I've had 1 year as a foreign language course or whatever. No comments on the prompt?
Yes, it's interesting how there was an industry out there of people selling prompts.
Oh yeah.
Now it just generates its own prompts, and there you go, kind of setting it up.
Yeah, there's a thing called Prompt Perfect that will help you formulate an effective prompt for anything you're trying to accomplish. And we are getting closer and closer with agent technology and other things where you don't have to be very accurate in your prompt, because before it actually executes your prompt, it's going to ask you for clarity. In other words, it'll analyze your prompt and come back to you and say, well, this is ambiguous. Do you mean this or do you mean that? And other things like that. But again, the idea that, hey, I don't have to, I can say, can you do this? But I don't have to sit there and spend weeks trying to figure out and back and forth to how you would do that. And you're going to see something very interesting here, I think, towards the end. So anyway, I then said, please summarize the purpose and benefits of such a custom GPT. So it spelled it all. It gave me the purpose. The custom GPT is designed to interact with users by responding to their queries while simultaneously evaluating and enhancing their communication skills, creative and critical thinking, and reasoning processes. By analyzing both the initial prompts and subsequent follow-on instructions, the custom GPT identifies areas of strength and pinpoints specific weaknesses. It then provides tailored feedback and coaching strategies to help users improve these essential cognitive and communication abilities. I mean, just that statement alone of what it's doing it's like mind-boggling. So then it goes into the benefits and personalized skill development, goes into tailored feedback, individual growth, enhanced communication skills, clarity and conciseness, structured organization, appropriate tone and style, strengthen creative and critical thinking, boosting creativity and improving critical analysis, innovative problem solving, refining reasoning processes, logical progression, evidence-based support, consistency in arguments, continuous improvement through interaction analysis, insight from follow-on questions, adaptive learning. So it's doing all these things here. And of course, then you get a conclusion out of that. you know, when we say these are the things we want to do, what school would not want their students to be doing all these things that this is saying it's going to help on? Okay, so this is an example here where this was a follow-on here to a question I asked about the whether or not instruction, lectures, instruction are a prerequisite to success in education. So, and it came back and it said those three things. It says, well, first of all, not everybody has access. Second, is too much technology reduces the quality of human interaction. And third, it said with regards to data privacy and so forth. So this is what it came back with. So response to my points on accessibility and cost, my comment on technology versus human interaction, my comment on data privacy. So until this point here, it was only responding to the thread of my questions regarding the use of technology for early childhood education. But this is where it then starts with the feedback on my communication and reasoning skills. And it gives me my strengths. Your points are articulated clearly and logically, with each argument following naturally from the previous one. This makes it effective and easy to follow. But improvement area, you could improve by briefly outlining the context before diving into specific arguments. For example, starting with a statement summarizing the key concerns related to AI in early childhood education would set a clear stage for your points. And then it goes into depth of analysis, critical thinking and balance, logical reasoning, the tone and persuasiveness. So it's a strength. Your tone is assertive and persuasive, which is effective in advocating for your position. But improvement areas, softening the language when discussing opposing views with regards to privacy concern, where I said people that are paranoid about privacy could go back to living in caves like the Stone Age. And so it said, make your arguments more inclusive and considerate. So they thought I was too harsh in my view there. And then improvement suggestions, he came up with those. So then said, hey, if you focus on these, you can improve. So anyway, that was an example, a real example. But I realized something. This was a follow-on response to this thread on early childhood education. So then I asked, I said, hey, when evaluating my prompt, did you refer back to the previous response to see if I had demonstrated good critical thinking in my follow-up prompt? Did I ask appropriate follow-on questions to all the items that one should follow up on if one is thinking critically about the previous response, in light of the way my prompt that generated the previous response was formulated? For example, if my previous prompt demonstrated uncertainty about something, it might be logical that one would have a follow-up question or comment about the response to that particular point. So it says, in evaluating your follow-up prompt, I didn't specifically refer back to the previous response to, and then it says, I should have done so. So it gave an analysis of my follow-on a prompt here. I see that I didn't do that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Maybe I did. Oh, I know I did. So, okay. So it came back and said, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't follow the chain of thought back to the previous part of the thread. So, is it clear that the custom GPT system is that clear that you should have done that? In other words, is it clear in the custom GPT system instructions that you should have done that, or does something in the system instructions need to be changed? So it says, yeah, it says that the current custom GPT system instructions do indicate the need to analyze your prompts and provide feedback on communication, blah, blah, blah. However, they do not explicitly emphasize the importance of referring back to previous interactions to assess whether follow-up prompts logically build on earlier responses. So it came back and gave me suggested adjustments to the instructions that go into the custom GPT. So it gave me all of those, and then said how I can implement it. And then in the revised instruction example, it gave me a revised instruction example for how to highlight response gaps, of how to emphasize cross-reference analysis, and so on. So basically here it's able to identify weaknesses in its own GPT. In other words, to its own core instructions, it's able to also identify weaknesses there as well. And so that you can ask it how and whether and how you should modify the system prompt to achieve what you want. And then go ahead and modify your system prompt, and you can constantly repeat this. So every time you come across something and you say, does that make sense? Did it really do this? Why didn't it ask me about this? Or I'm surprised that it let this go through. And you can be refining your custom GPT. So whether it's to learn a language, whether it's guiding young children in developing their imaginations and their communication skills, or advising older people at any age about how to communicate more effectively, how to be a better, more creative and better critical thinker, how to have better reasoning and be better at problem solving. It doesn't make any difference what you're asking for help for. You can use AI to improve AI. That's basically the bottom line. So I do need you guys to I'm going to jump out of this one because we've covered 2 out of our 3 points. So what do you think? What do you think?
Well, I'm about ready to play it right now, that's for sure, because this belief that people have about the peace is not totally possible in a lifetime. I believe that maybe we can ask the AI, using all the wisdom traditions of the planet, that we can tell stories and give examples of when people actually lived in peace, like the Iroquois Federation and things like that. And there's many others, of course, and some of them are very localized. And when you mentioned about Japan, and I think it was in Formosa, they have people living a long, long time and so on. They live a long time because their community is so interactive with each other. It's a real tight and caring community. And that allows them to live on the average of well over 100 years old. So when that gets out to the public, and I got to ask the questions and prompts and get more feedback from it, but you've inspired me to be able to give that concept that we always have to have war. It's every 15 years now, or maybe 30 years if we are lucky. So boom, boom, shambo, here we go.
Yeah. I think the thing here that I find amazing is the fact that we now have the ability to have, well, first of all, just having the conversation, just talking. I ask everything. I just asked yesterday, I said, can you tell me how many trees are growing on a particular plot of land at a particular address in North Carolina? Now, I mean, you talk about here something that's way out. I ask literally everything. I mean, there is nothing I can't imagine that you can't ask. But you can be very disappointed with your questions if you do not provide the context, if you do not provide the more accurate your question is, and sometimes the saying where to look, Okay, I said, you know, look at high resolution satellite pictures to be able to figure out how many trees are growing in the, on that property. But I probably should have seen how many trees that are at least more than 5 meters tall. But I've asked so many questions about things like quality of well water in a place, or and about the education practices and who's doing what. You have to be careful about the obviously the hallucinations, especially with ChatGPT 4.0. But as of yesterday, ChatGPT 01 is now available in the free version. Now, L1 Mini, O1 Mini. Now, O1 Mini is the version that has reasoning in it. It's a version that outperforms most PhD students and qualified to be in the top 500 young people in the world who participate in the Math Olympiad. It has the reasoning. It will tell you how it reasoned. It will tell you why it reasoned. And it has almost no hallucinations, because part of what it's doing as it goes through its reasoning of how should I approach this problem is along the way, it asks itself, is there any hallucination going on here? And it eliminates things that it says, oh, wait a minute, I need to prove that. I don't have any proof for that. So it's amazing. So when you click on ChatGPT, not on a custom GPT, but on ChatGPT, then on the right-hand side, you have a drop-down that lets you pick which model you're using. Now, the default on the free version is 4.0, but you have the ability to go on 20 minutes. Sorry about that. Okay. So that here is another amazing step. So, and another thing that came out is Google brought out here Notebook LM, and there's something I want to share if I can find it real quick. Okay, this is something here. I'm going to just play it. Hopefully you can hear it. I'll find
Welcome
out.
back, deep divers. Ready for another
Can
dive?
you hear that?
This time we're tackling the Pact for the Future.
Straight from the UN, this document.
Overflowing with plans.
To say the least. It's
We're listening.
From ending poverty and hunger
to like achieving world peace
and security. Yeah. The UN's calling it a new beginning for how countries work together.
A new beginning. Bold statement. What makes this different from, all the other reports and agreements?
Well, the pact itself says we need a profound global transformation. It gets at the old ways. Yeah, not cutting it.
Not just like baby steps anymore.
No way. This is about serious change. They even use the word turbocharge to describe the action they want.
Turbocharge? Okay, I like it. But what does that actually look like?
It means completely flipping the script on things like financing for developing countries.
So not just, here's some aid, good luck.
Right. One idea is moving away from traditional aid and towards stuff like debt swaps for climate.
Okay. What did you think of that? Were you able to hear that okay?
Was that AI produced?
Yeah, I took a document, I think it's about 40 pages long, and it produced that 7-minute conversation about the document in about 2 minutes.
Wow.
And I've done that for a couple of things now. I did it on the use of research in AI. And how AI is changing the way research in medical and all the different fields is taking place. That's in something called Notebook LM. It's free. Just do
Now,
Notebook.
if I were to want to put, let's say, this book that my friend wrote that I put into the chat about Spaceship Earth, could it put it into the Audible then with the tone of voice of, let's say, well, let's say your tone of voice?
Yeah, you can't right now. It's only available in English, and it's only available with the two voices that it currently have. You can't control the voices. I'm doing some experimenting right now. I have been told that you can try to get it to stick closer to a script or whatnot, but literally here, I totally believe you could give it a 240-page book and have it come up with a 6-minute conversational review of the entire content of the book. And it would it would process the 240 pages and give you a 6 to 10 minute review and do it probably within 2 minutes.
Wow.
So I'll tell you what, Kurt, I will take the book that you gave me. If I'm able to get the PDF for that, or if you could send me the PDF, let me go and create for you an audio on that and see what you think.
I'd love to.
Bill.
That'd be fascinating. I'd love to send it on to my buddy, because
Okay,
I'm working really.
send me the PDF. Send me the PDF form, and I'll get it done.
Bill, about this one that you're just talking about, do you have to have the book, the complete book, the original book, in the PDF format? Or they already have it in their own database and they just do a review and
you can by the way, you can also just point it to a website and have it go and review the entire website and make an audio review of the entire website.
No. The reason why I ask is because I have some books already that I picked that I would like to have like compendium. Maybe not a 1 page, but a compendium. What is this book about? And give me something else. About the book. So I don't have to have the book. I just have to send it.
Yeah, right now it can only handle PDF format or Google Docs formats.
Google Docs. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah, but I expect you're going to be able to do that with YouTube videos. There's a thing that does exactly the same thing called Recast, RECAST. And it will do exactly the same thing. And it may take more formats.
Yeah, but for what I'm interested, I would like to have the book, the complete book first. I mean, not the summary or somebody else's book or a video or anything.
Oh, no, it's not going to give you an audio book. It will not go and repeat word for word what you've got. It will just give you a summary. And the interesting thing about the summaries that it gives you is when the first one that I did was about a thing called the Supplementary Income for All plan, and it was a fireside chat about this plan that was mind-boggling. So yeah, but I've only started. It was only announced maybe a week ago, maybe at the most. And there's another one called Illuminati or something like that. Hi, Jerica. Are you familiar with the Notebook LM and this Illuminati from Google?
I haven't had the chance to use it enough to vet it whether or not I think it's good or bad. But what I have seen is a little more accuracy. As long as your prompts don't prompt it to kind of pick you apart so that I can get a better accurate answer. But I do enjoy that feature because it's able to comb out so that it's not just feeding you something that is programmed to do. It's programmed to give you an answer. So instead of just doing that, it actually refines both your prompt and its answer.
Yeah. And the thing here that blew my mind a little bit on one of the documents that I gave it, is it reads between the lines. It figures out what you were trying to accomplish in the document, and it talks about that. So in other words, it's not limited to repeating what's in the document. It actually goes beyond that and goes deeper into what you're talking about and brings in external aspects. It's pretty mind-boggling. Now, talking about new developments, there's another thing called Wave 2, announced by Microsoft on Monday, I think it was. And what that is they have really upgraded Copilot and integrated it into PowerPoint. And it already was in Microsoft Teams, so that, you know, if you were late to a Teams is like Zoom. So it's like if you're late to the Zoom call, you can say, could you bring me up to date real quick? And it will bring you up to date on everything that was talked about before you join the meeting. And then you're able to continue on from there. But it will also, at the end, it will summarize what were all the main points. You can say, I need like a 5-minute summary of what we talked about over these 3 hours. And it will generate for you the summary and all the highlights and who said what that was particularly interesting. And it will isolate out all the to-dos that anybody said, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that going forward. So that's was already there. But now you can go into Excel and ask it, hey, I want to get all the statistics related to this or that. And it will generate the Excel spreadsheet for you. Then or if you have an Excel spreadsheet that has like all the statistics of every school in a state, how many children are in this program, how many at this grade level, how many classrooms there are, how many qualify for free or subsidized lunch, all the details. And then you can just say, you know what, go through that whole thing of 50 data fields per line by 6,000 lines in this spreadsheet. Go through that all and find out all the information that is interesting and tell me what those are. And it might conclude that there's something and you're saying, yeah, but you know, oh, I see now you didn't have that. There's some column of information that you did not have available that would have differentiated the response that you gave some. Hey, you know what? Add that column and go find the information to populate that column about all those schools. And it will go out and find the information for you populated. And not only that, now you can, and it'll do the analysis for you. It'll write reports for you. It'll generate and make everything, visualize everything in graphs for you. But now it has the ability that it will write Python programs that will custom analyze all the data for you. So this is mind-boggling. Then you go over to PowerPoint and you said, this guy says, hey, we're making a startup company. We want to make charging units for electric vehicles. And we want to try to sell this to the LA airport. Can you tell us how many parking garages there are and how many of those have charging stations now? How many charging stations? And then tell me how many people come in and out of the LA airport every day, and tell me all that information. And then go out there and look at all the different places that have charging units today, and tell me, where are all the things what are people complaining about charging units? What are all the things they like? And it will look up all the reviews across all the locations around the country or wherever you specified. Find out all the comments that everybody's making, summarize these and analyze and say, these are the main points that people are concerned about. These are the things that they love about it, so that you can figure it out. And then you turn around and say, now create for me a PowerPoint that is going to get the LAX to buy my charging unit thing. And it will pull together all the information of the advantages, what the competitors are doing and everything. It will create the whole PowerPoint for you. First, it'll create the whole outline of it. And then if you say yes, it will go and it will pull all the images and animations and videos together in the PowerPoint for you. And I'm now at the level where I'm trying to experiment. Can I actually have that thing generate and convert it over into a where it animates the audio, it creates all the audio automatically, and then turns it into a video.
Okay,
So,
Bill, I have a question.
Yeah.
I got lost between what you were talking. Who is offering this? Microsoft,
that's
Google,
Microsoft.
or Microsoft?
Okay, no, my Notebook LM and Illuminati are, and there's two other tools, one that generates videos from text and one that generates images from text, the new version. That's from Google. What I just described for PowerPoint and for Excel, that's from Microsoft. That's part of what they're calling Wave 2. Just announces you can go look for videos on Wave 2. It came out last Monday. The Notebook LM update came out probably last week. You know, I'm only scratching the surface of new stuff that just came out. It's
this is good. I'm gonna look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, this is moving so fast. But now you have to imagine applying these things that we're seeing to enable us to revolutionize education and bring education to all those. Can you see how, well, we didn't get into the independent learning aspect, but the idea here is to teach people how you can do like what I did here with the example of getting ChatGPT to build its own education platform inside of ChatGPT, that you can use this to say, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, I want to pass the bar exam. Anything you can imagine, and tell it, I want to do this. I want to be able to hear music and know what notes are being played just by listening to it. I want to, there's no limits. What this is going to, the implications of what this is going to mean for, especially here, post-secondary education, tertiary education. And because we're talking lifelong learners, everybody has to be learning every day for the rest of their lives, because these kinds of changes that we're seeing are just, they're just coming so fast, so fast. I have a list of probably close to 20 videos that I just earmarked for me to, I need to watch them and see, because they're each describing some new stuff. That's just from yesterday. I marked 20 just from one day. I never got to them. I wasn't able to get to them. But it just shows how fast. I'm going to send out a list of the 10 or so channels that I watch that I feel do the best job of keeping you informed about the latest things that are coming out. And especially where everybody's going now is use cases, use cases, use cases. It's great that we've got a tool like GPT, but how can I use it? And one of the things that Sam Altman has said, the president or the CEO of OpenAI behind ChatGPT, is that they were not able to comprehend what ChatGPT was capable of. It's only when they set it free to the general public and people started to do things that all of a sudden people had ideas of what they could do with it that nobody involved with developing ChatGPT ever imagined. So we're going to see some great things. Kurt.
Yeah, real quickly, that's why we have the Peacemaker Circles, is getting, and we have these meetings here, is getting the incredible geniuses that are sitting right in front of our view to be able to have this bouncing off these ideas and that synergistic effect of it all. And ChatGPT has all the quote knowledge, but we have the ability to be able to use the ingenuity that we have to be able to focus on what we want. And when we do, we're going to get more of it. Mm-hmm. And that's why this whole thing that instead of worrying about how many trees are in this hectare or something like that, we'll focus on playing in all the ways that can make peace come alive in life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We're literally here. If I go beyond 12 o'clock, I'm going to get my head chopped off. So,
please no.
Yeah. You know, if you have not looked at Suno and Udio and you are interested in music creation, you have to look at that. Mind-boggling. You can just go tap something on with your fingers on your desktop here, and it will turn it into a song. And you can tell it what you want them to be singing about, and whether you want it to be a female group, a male group, a choral group, whatever. You can tell it what kind of instruments you want. You can tell it what genre of music you want.
You can send that to us in that email. You're going to send us an email with all these, because this is dynamite kind of information.
Because one of the best ways, if you can come up with a catchy song about something, that's a great way to educate people, to get people thinking about something. And
look at what Imagine did.
Let's see what. When we talk about here, you know, Wayne Gretzky, famous ice hockey player. One of his most famous quotes were, "You don't skate to where the puck is, you skate to where the puck is going to be." And this is why it is so important that we be aware of what's coming, especially in the near future. I think it was in 2017, 2,700 information scientists, data scientists, were polled as to what they thought about when a certain capability in AI would become available, based on ChatGPT 2 having just been released. And they estimated between 50 and 70 years was their estimate of when that next stage would be achieved. 1 year later, it was there. So they were off by 49 or more years. But if we take it in the percents, they were off by 98+%. And so it's coming so fast. Now we've got a tease from Sam Altman saying that Orion, which is rumored to be basically ChatGPT 5, which is going to elevate the quality here of or the intelligence, if you would. As I said, there's no such thing as intelligence in artificial intelligence. But if we were to say that, by the way, that ChatGPT 01 that I said is now available, at least the full version of that, has scored in the IQ testing, has scored at a level of 120. And we have to think 100 is average for humans. So it's 20 points above the average human. This new version is estimated that it is going to be miles and miles ahead. It's codenamed Orion, like the star cluster there. So it's being teased. It's coming out this winter. You're going to start seeing discussions where leaks are coming out of what it's capable of. And this is something to watch. So you'll be able to see these things in the links I'm going to send out that describe who's giving the best reports on what's available now, what you can use today, and what you'll be used to. So with that,
I just put in the chat real quickly. Can that music thing make Imagine sung like Bruce Springsteen's style?
I would say yes. I would say yes.
I want to play with that one.
SORA. Go and Google SORA or put it into ChatGPT, and it will tell you how to get there. You remember when I played that song OAI a few months back? That was generated with Sora. But the music it will blow your mind. And there are thousands of examples of AI that people have created in every genre you can imagine using these tools already. Okay, so last comments. Anybody want to say anything about today's session? Sort of a wrap-up comment about today's session real quick.
Yes, Billy, can I say something?
Yes.
Thank you. This is Michael Wanjuzi from Uganda. Talking about AI, the way I'm seeing the way I'm seeing things going is by the time it reaches to rural Manafa district, it will have changed its form to another form of AI, because in the global south, AI is still a new thing, and by the time we get to chat GB, you said 5, Africa will be on 1 or 2.
Here's what I'm afraid of. That as this stuff is coming online, the expectation is that most jobs that anybody that has a university degree or any skills around the world, most of those jobs are going to be gone within the next 5 to 10 years, probably closer to 5 than to 10. And this is going to cause almost all the banks to collapse because nobody's going to be able to pay their mortgages, their car loans, and nobody's going to have any incomes. And there's going to be a big debate about creating universal basic incomes. When they create universal basic incomes, they're going to be done by country. So what's going to happen is within a country, there'll be a fight between the 3 to 5% that have all own everything and the 95% who have nothing, to about getting about how much universal basic income there'll be. But because that's going to take up all the money, nobody's going to be paying taxes, nobody's going to be paying into Social Security, nobody's going to have any money to donate to charitable organizations. And therefore, you're going to see that the global south is just going to be cut off. Though the developed areas in the global south will be okay. The rest of the areas, people are going to be so tied up with their own lives that I fear that they're just going to say, sorry, the 70, 80% of the people who are on the wrong side of the digital divide, who are not up to date, you're on your own from here. We're not going to do anything anymore for you. And so what's going to happen is they will never get AI. They're going to be just turned over to themselves. This is my fear, which is why we have to know, we have to be able to project, just like we'd project for a hurricane or a cyclone. We have to be able to project what the future is likely to look at, like if we just continue on the evolutionary trajectory we're on, so that we can act so that the worst cases don't come. And we have to do it quickly, because once that starts, the job loss starts, and it could start in as little as 2 years, because the humanoid robots are already being put into the workplace. The BMW plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina, is already using humanoid robots. There's I think here Tesla is already starting to use them, but their projections are within 10 years we could have 1 billion humanoid robots that are working as cheaply as $1 an hour in developed countries. So when the money is gone and people, they in developed countries are existing, but they've got no luxuries, they've got no means to earn anything beyond what they've got, the classes will be frozen in place, if you would. We need to figure out what that society, that world society that we want looks like. Because if we don't plan for a world society that works in that situation, we could end up with a world society that we really don't want. I hate to be so blunt, but we got to talk about it. The problems aren't less just because we ignore them. And there's a Julie McCoy, MCCOY, I think, who has a number of videos that are explaining what's going on with the universal basic income. But she's also talks about the post-labor society, or the jobless society, and how quickly it's coming and what's going to happen with jobs. anyway, be aware. Yes, Ramesh, you want to say something?
No, it's very good. Are there some places where I could go personally and make face to face to some people who know more about it? You did a great job today explaining so many things from kindergarten or even small at that age to all the way up. So I would like to meet some people, talk to them, and discuss some of my problems. Is there anything like that?
Well, we have the
Where are you
Rotary
living?
Action Group here. It does that. Also, I'm trying to. You and I are in the same district here because You and I are only about 15 miles apart, and so um, I'm trying to get a project going in the district with maybe the 8 districts here that are Eastern Pennsylvania to Western Connecticut. To try to use some of these technologies to demonstrate how we can revolutionize education in these. We're trying to take 10 elementary schools that have never gotten even 10% of their students to be at grade level in the last 10 years and be able to demonstrate we can get them to have 70% of their children at grade level within 1 year.
Okay,
Bill,
please keep me informed.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to say something about, you talked about cutting off a bigger percentage of the people in the global south, but this AI could do very well in the agricultural settings in these countries that will be cut off. So
No,
don't you think?
Yeah, you're right, but here's what happens. If you look at history, look at what happened with agriculture in North America and Europe. As soon as you increase productivity in agriculture, you get consolidation and you get becomes more capital intensive. So every time agriculture has been improved, 90% of the people working in agriculture get tossed out of the agricultural field. Now, in general, up until now in the world, that has been good news because that freed up all that labor to be able to go into health services, education services, building infrastructure, manufacturing all the stuff we want. So it was great news. But if all of those jobs are being taken over by robots and AI, and we now start improving agriculture, then all of those people are going to be losing their livelihoods and their land. So it's very important we have a plan of how we're going to help those people transition. So we see in Europe and North America, the share of the population was 150 years ago was about 70 to 80% were involved in food production and agriculture. And today it's about 3% of the people are involved there. In Africa, you've got, depending on country, between 60 and 80% of the population involved in agriculture and food production. But if you improve the production, you're going to have the same results because increasing the amount of food is going to reduce the cost because you're not increasing the amount of money that's available in your market to pay for the food. So just increasing the amount of food is not doing. We don't have a shortage of food in the world. We only have a shortage of people able to pay for the going price for food. And this is why you find countries that pay farmers to not grow food. And you find here companies that actually buy up and collect food and destroy it to keep the prices high. Some of the things that appear easy and simple, when we really get into them, they're not. But we gotta be talking about that. And we have an example in China that has done a really amazing job in reducing poverty, especially relocating people from rural areas, not always that they wanted, but in the end, I think most people, they took the approach of what we call timeshares, where we here in the United States, we invite people to come and spend a weekend in a luxury resort area. And then say, do you want to buy 2 weeks out of the year for vacation to come to our luxury resort area? And they get people to buy like that. basically China said, hey, we're going to take people from these remote areas that have no running water and no sanitation, no roads, no electricity, and we're going to invite them to spend a weekend in a high quality, beautiful apartment building with running water, electricity, flat screen TVs, and all the amenities of life. And then invite them to stay. And of course, what happened is the older people said, no, I want to go home. But their kids and the younger people said, I want to stay. And they stayed. And the older people, after going home for a while, said, oh, home's no fun anymore with no young people around. And they ended up moving to join their kids. And so that's how they did it. But they did it organized. They made sure that the communities that they moved people to, that they created economic zones so that the jobs were there, the training for the jobs was there. And this is how they were able to so successfully reduce poverty in China in such a short time. Never been done in the world before. Africa really has to take a look at the model and say, okay, what can we learn? What can we apply from these so we can help the transition? Because what we see right now is a lot of the movement from rural to urban areas is just people going into urban slums, and that's not helping anybody. And the other thing we have to realize, just leaving people in those subsistence farming, every generation you have double the number of families. And so you have to divide the land and then divide the land again and divide the land again to support the families. And eventually
Of
the
course, the
land,
famine in Ireland.
yeah, it gets to be too small to support the people that have to live there.
And one epidemic and you're done, you know?
Yep. So anyway, we're over the time. Oh, I gotta watch out. There's gonna get a bucket of water tossed at me here in a second. So I thank everybody. I really thank you for your time and sticking with us so long, and for participating here. And hopefully we've covered some valuable ground. I will do my best to get this and the previous two videos out and put them into a channel where everybody can watch them. Although I have a little concern about putting, let's see, what's that, about 8 hours of video out there with those three stations. Okay.
We'll get the AI to analyze it.
Yes, okay. Yes, that's it. That's what we'll do.
Zoom in peace.
Thank you, everyone.
Bill, make sure to let us know where you're putting all of this. If you
Yes,
can send
I
it by
will
email or
do that.
Telegram or WhatsApp.
I'll on a WhatsApp, I'll send out the channel name. Okay.
Okay.
Zoom in peace.
Excellent meeting today. Okay.
Thank
Just go
you.
and
Thank
eat.
Qué bueno.
Yes, will do. Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Bye now.